Roger Day from England doing a seminar, and he's just a lovely person with lots of wonderful thoughts, and he's going to share them with you today. So
thank you, Liz. Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm delighted to meet you all. It is the biggest adventure of my life to come here. I've never been in the States. I've never, ever once been to a chainsaw carving event, even though it's been my career for over a decade, which seems extraordinary, but it is who I am. As my title says, the form within, : material as the source, tooling as the method, spirit as the hand of creation. If you think that sounds a bit pretentious, I will gladly tone it down, but it is who I am. Sorry, my English eccentricism forever draws me to the edge. So, what to say, my life has been about trees since I was a young man. I've always admired them, and I'm first going to talk a little bit about my history, and so you get an angle of where I'm coming from. We all have different histories, so that's what's so interesting about being here, is we exchange so much. The whole event, as far as I'm concerned, is about giving, and everyone gives so freely, it's unbelievable. Okay, the form within, Michelangelo, very famous quotes. Every block of stone has a statue inside, and it is the task of the sculptor to discover it. The best artist has that thought alone which is contained within the marble shell. The sculptor's hand can only break the spell to free the figures slumbering in the stone. Obviously these are very idealistic statements, and we all like getting into the flow of a piece of material in the moment and working for the moment. Every time you make that cut, it's like the first cut you've made, because you have a limitation to the block. But I must say I work on a large scale, so you'll see as we go along, I've actually developed methods designed to work large blocks. You can't actually afford the time to keep cutting again and again a big cut. You know, it's very time consuming and very abusive to your body as well, to do large rip cuts. So I work in people at shows. They quite often ask the same questions over and over again, and one of them is, oh, how do you work? Do you just go with the flow of the wood? And I go, well, actually, I impose, I design very strongly, and I do the other end of the spectrum, and everything in between. You know, it's such a holistic experience. So, excuse my screen. I'm sorry, we did all the intention of everyone was to have a bigger one, but you will get the gist of it as we go along, I'm sure. Okay, so Michelangelo's very famous sculptures. People at the side can't see, I'm sorry about that. The captives or the slaves, which really depict this aspect of the hidden form within the block of material. Very famous pieces, and inspired me as a young man. There's an autobiography of Michelangelo that I read 6 times in a row. I was so enthralled by the idea of entering into a block of material, and it becoming a passion, almost like a meditation, where you really become that object that it is that you're trying to find. So, material as the source. Okay, when I was a younger man, I didn't work wood. What I did, I was a service engineer, and I used to go around in a car fixing office equipment and then video games and pinball tables in pubs. To be honest with you, I absolutely loathed it. Right, I don't know, I'm sure you've all, like I said, you've all got mixed histories and you've all come from different angles into this. And it is, again, interesting what you bring to the group with all your diverse skills. You know, and I find now, the reason why I don't go to chainsaw carving events, one reason is because I'm always making tools. I just can't stop doing it. It absolutely draws me in. Yeah, I love the idea of manipulating and changing the way I'm doing things in that way. So I experiment. But when I was a service engineer, the thing that kept me happy as I drove along, was in towns, busy streets, cars all day long, you know, watching out for the police so that I don't get stopped for speeding. But every now and then you would see a beautiful tree, yeah, with beautiful bark that inspired me totally. And Here are some of the slides I took at the time, and they're all about the textures and the patterns that are there in the tree, the patterns of growth, the patterns of the bark, the patterns of the limbs. And being the person I was, I took it to a metaphysical level. The idea of the patterns, these things run across all forms of life. They're patterns of behaviour, you know, they're patterns visually, as well as, you know, like music. To me, art is all about dance and movement. Yeah. So, what I did initially as an artist is I took those patterns, and this is the result. I'm sorry it's so small for everyone, I can zoom in. I worked in clay originally, and I used to spend hours recreating bark surfaces. And it's just, you know, I am a man of passion, and I just follow how I feel about things. And it was something about it that just drew me in. I can't actually explain it now. Maybe it's more evident to you than it is to me, from you on the outside. But you can see I actually developed, this is how I work. I'm very methodical about things. I actually developed a way to make the clay. I rolled it in a certain fashion. I made tubes of it, actually. And then I would distress them by squashing them and rolling them at the same time. And it would crack on the inside of this kind of fat-walled tube of clay. And when you cut the tube, or it fell apart, you open it out, you know, because of, as we were talking about the shrinkage of wood the other day, you get all these different stresses going on. As you open it out, yeah, you get this beautiful representation of the splitting of bark. And the way it works is the inside of the tube is a very small surface relative to the outside of the tube. And it's just like the way the tree grows, as far as I can see. When it's a young sapling, yeah, the bark is only of a certain circumference. So as it grows, those layers that are created early on can't cover the tree. So as it puts on more and more layers, yeah, you get this fissured effect. And that's how I saw it at the time. And I found, like I said, these patterns of growth absolutely fascinating. And I tried to emulate them. I also made round pottery as well. And this is how I actually came to work wood itself. I was using a large wood-fired kiln where I would have to buy cordwood. I don't know if you call it the same here, but there's a stack of wood that's 4 by 8 by 8, no, 4 by 4 by 8, which is a cord, and I would use a cord of wood for a firing to 1300 degrees centigrade, which is white hot, yeah, in a big wood-fired kiln. And the guy I was getting the wood from was a woodland manager who lived locally to me, and he was interested in traditional crafts and the idea of sustainable land management. And our history of forestry in the southeast of England is different to how the way you work the woods here. And I'm just going to talk a little bit about that because I'm hugely involved with that now. Working green wood and the actual source of my material is one of the most important things to me, is to make sure that it's sustainably managed, it's sustainable, yeah, and that we do everything in the right way. So, if my slideshow works, please work. Here we go. Sussex and Surrey Coppice Group. I'm now on the committee of this group. And being an artist and a maker, instead of being a cut, I'm not so much concerned about the cutting of the trees and the way they're planted, but they've hired me to be head of innovation, a very lofty, highfalutin position. But it is my mission to create greenwood products that will create new markets. Yeah, so I'm into product design now for what we call small diameter roundwood. Coppice is actually a technique where you cut trees down to the ground, and they have a thing called a coppice habit, where, as you know, as you've all seen it happen, shoots come out from the root, which we actually call a stool, actually. And these shoots we allow to grow, and then you get many stems coming off the same root structure. Now, to do that, and it's been done for hundreds and hundreds of years in the area where I live, it was actually originally mostly done for producing charcoal, because before the Industrial Revolution, where they discovered the coal further north in our country, all our iron, all our arms, all our cannon was made in the area I live now, and it was done with charcoal from the wood. Yeah, our country was built on the trees. And this is a photograph of a very typical English, southeastern English woodland with bluebells underneath, which luckily we have a great predominance of these flowers, but weirdly enough they're an endangered species just because they grow in this area, or rather in England, you know. And these are oak standards. Coppice works by growing different species and subspecies together. Again, like a symbiotic situation. The oak standards grow to a good old age and produce timber for shipbuilding, and we had laws that insisted that oaks were planted for this reason. So not only the cannon but also the fleet come from the same source. And underneath the oaks we have what they call understory, which is smaller. I don't know why. That is a picture of a very ancient beech tree, typical of our woodland. We have large standards all over the place. I don't know why my friend gave me that frame. It's just interesting to see some of the English types of trees. This is more typical of the woodlands. I lost my thread for a moment, excuse me. Alright, a stool. This is called a stool, and I can actually zoom in so you can see how that stool is probably 300 or 400 years old, which is just astonishing. Because the plant on its own would not survive that long. Yeah, but when you repeatedly cut it, because it has such a strong foundation for gathering nutrients to the plant, yeah, it can live for a much longer period of time. Yeah, and you can see all the stems grow off, and they will all grow